Hello and welcome to NeuroAssess. Today we're going to look at one of our new tools, that kind of process. But first we start, I'd like to actually do acknowledgement of country and the lands in which we all meet across the world and the traditional landowners of those lands. Today's process, what we're going to do is Sue and I are going to play a bit of a game. I'm going to be a patient, Sue's going to be a practitioner, and we'll show you the step-by-step guide of using the platform. So we'll jump straight into it. Sue, over to you.
Good morning, everyone. Okay, so just very quickly, I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to start with the NeuroBalance platform. Share, here we go. All right, so I'm just going to go home. So I've already logged in. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new client. That new client is going to be Shane Warren. And I'm going to type in his email address.
And don't forget to do the DASS.
Yes, thank you. And I'll send Shane an additional psychometric measures. So we use the suicide cognition scale short form. We also use the hopelessness measures, and we use the Luscher. And as an add-on, we offer the DASS as well, built into our platform. So I'll send that now. And in a moment, Shane will show you that he will have the email coming to him. I'll just make you the host now, Shane, so you can. There you go.
That's
All
it.
right, I'm
All right.
posting.
Cool. So I'll just open my emails. Oops. Mailbox. Okay, so that's my email. I'm just waiting for it to come through from Sue's side. There it is there.
New session. Yep.
Yep, that's it. All right, and as you can see here, we open up with the informed consent process is the journey we really go through in this sort of situation. There's a couple of screens where we read through things about, the usual kind of stuff about privacy, about the right to deliver situations, record information, that sort of stuff. All right, so just quickly bear with me. I'll make up some stuff here. 99, make myself nice and young.
I think it's four digits to 20.
Sorry. 1999, my apologies.
Yep.
I'm rushing.
Yeah.
All right, so my address, Penn Lane Way, Darlinghurst, 010, mobile 0444 888 999. Third contact number, like that. All right. So now I've got in my proof of person as such, and I read those processes, and then I agree or disagree within that. Now, I'm just going to skip through really quickly here. So do you want us to address this informed consent while I click on them?
Sure. So the informed consent takes people through all of the legal obligations, including when we will actually break confidentiality, and that the patient also acknowledges that they will be receiving further updates and psychometric assessments that may come into our practice, or that we may be using in our practice, regardless of whether it's a NeuroAssess platform or a different psychometric measure that you use, and that they acknowledge that they will be honest in answering all of those questions. I find the best way to have people provide their identity is actually to provide their signature, but they can actually upload an image, a photograph, or an audio recording of their voice as well.
So I'll just do a signature. So thank you for completing this. Now that that information is now emailed to me as a PDF. All right. So as you can see, that pre-data is populated already into the situation. We'll keep my postal addresses the same for speed here. My nationality is Australian. Cultural background is just say Australian, whatever that might really mean. English.
You need to answer about the interpreter. Yep.
No. All right. So we've got all here to enter data for Medicare cards and that stuff for anyone who needs to have that information. I'm going to skip through really quickly where I can. All right. Is there a mental health plan in place? No, there is not. Emergency contacts, Sam Sampson, sam@gmail.com. And can Sam lives with me? Laneway, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I forgot I made up an address. Sorry, guys.
It was Darlinghurst, postcode 2010.
Thanks, Sue.
So
I'm
you
not
need
like a role
just their
player.
mobile phone number.
Yeah, so mobile phone number for
Yeah.
them, let's say 04589999. Okay. Relationship, let's say spouse. All right. Secondary emergency contact, if we want to put one of those in for speed, I just won't. That kind of situation. General practitioner, always encourage my clients if they can to really put that in. So let's say Dr. Sarah Lewis at Darlinghurst.
And you'll notice that it's mandatory for the name of the clinic and the suburb, just so that if they can't remember the name of their doctor, at least we've got a contact point and you can contact that GP if you need to, if you're making a referral or for any other reason.
And then as we go further, if it's applicable, there's a referring practitioner there, those kind of issues. Any children, again, this is mandatory. We'll say I do not have children for ease and speed. Previous appointments of mental health practitioners, and always encourage it really to answer this quickly. So yes, I've seen a psychologist and a counselor before. When was the last appointment? Let's say 12 months ago. That's why I'm reaching out to Sue now as a practitioner. Again, we record all this information about any medications people might be on or any kind of legal matters that may be at play. So you can see here, have you entered a convicted process? No. Are you involved in any kind of issues? No, I'm going to keep myself clean and neat in this example. And then, do you have any intervention orders or anything like that? No.
So if people had answered yes, it opens up a dialogue box where more information can be added.
Thank you. Yeah, that's right. So this is really kind of, I suppose, in the next step is kind of defining, well, really, why am I reaching out? Like, what's the purpose? It's kind of going to be the background of what might be going on for the particular individual at the time. So let's just sort of say that maybe, I'm having a little bit of communication challenges with my partner. I've got no children from the earlier stuff, but could have put that in there. So sexually, let's say, increased interest with sex. That's why my partner and I are having communication problems. Here we want to look at if there's any kind of recreational or social drug use in that kind of area. We do have alcohol separate from down there and also smoking. So we're looking at kind of, happy Friday night drugs is kind of what we're trying to draw into that sort of situation there. I'm going to just keep it clean for ease purposes. I'm not on any medications. Do I drink? So let's have a look. Yeah, I enjoy a glass of wine.
It's not in secret. So
yeah, so it's not secret. Yeah. Sort of presenting myself here, which I think a lot of us see, the usual kind of, standard social engagement with drinking, that kind of stuff. So we might say really, we'll go regular. I have a glass of wine every night with my dinner. All right. Smoking. I don't smoke. I will say what else. Yeah, I do cigarettes. All right. Socially when I'm out with my friends, that kind of stuff. So what kind of means like out with friends. All right. Gambling, I'm going to skip over that one, that kind of stuff. Any sort of work-related issues. Let's say that, yeah, work has taken over my life. All right. Common theme, my relationships are falling apart a little bit. Phobias, we got no phobias present. Any weight issues, let's say, yeah, unexplained weight gain because I'm getting old. Self-harm. We look at that kind of situation. We've got any concerns here. Often people skip over this. They don't really want to sort of jump in saying, yes, I have suicidal thoughts. That's the beauty of the particular tool. It helps us touch deeper into that a little bit later. So let's pretend I don't have that sort of issues. All right. Other kind of things, maybe I'm dealing with a bit of grief and loss and, I've got elderly parents getting sick, so parents getting old and sick. All right. So here again, further, again, backgrounding me as a patient a little bit, to try and understand a little bit what might be going on in my world. All right. So, do I have any kind of issues? Well, I've mentioned that work's taking over my life. I've got a lot of stress and I'm actually having trouble with my relationships. So some anxiety is present. Because work is actually, really taking on, I'm waking frequently, finding it hard to stay asleep. All right. Which of course then is my energy levels are a bit low. So I'm feeling quite fatigued, tired and loss of energy. My appetite has decreased even though I'm getting fatter. That's why I can't understand why. Just saying those kind of situations, creating a pretty standard response with people, really, and shall we say, like, my coping behaviors, well, probably, although I smoke only socially, I'm reaching out a bit more for that. And I'm not having one glass of wine with dinner anymore. I'm noticing I'm having a bottle of wine with dinner. My moods, of course, I'm feeling a bit vague. I feel worthless because what life is just too demanding. Low stress. My partner doesn't like me anymore. All right. Concentration and memory. Yeah, I got foggy memory because I'm not sleeping. Common kind of response as well, isn't it? My anger issues, probably, yeah, I'm tired, so I'm short-tempered and I have a bit of a short fuse. That's what making work even more stressful. Going further into this diagnostic tool, so in other words, have we ever been diagnosed in this sort of stuff? Like, is anything that's kind of presenting in those kind of areas? So, look, my last treatment to my psychologist and counselor was to deal with burnout. All right. Medical diagnosis and conditions, nothing really there, that kind of space to be diagnosed with. So we say, maybe because I'm getting a little older, my blood pressure's high. So we might suggest that maybe I've got a bit of a heart condition and some increased headaches in that sort of stuff. Common again, when I'm working, I'm stressed, my relationship isn't good. All right. Other issues, well, I'm not female, so I'm currently not pregnant, that kind of thing. But we could, if we put on that, we'd actually be able to explain those kind of a bit further about how far we're along, if I'm having any complications, that sort of issue. Okay, and now we enter up to the SCS-S. One I find very hard to say, so my apologies in that. So I'm going to answer the questions. Do you want to give a quick briefing on the tool?
Sure. So the SCS-S is a suicide cognition scale. It's a short version, and it was developed by Dr. Craig Bryan and Dr. David Rudd in the States. It's a fairly new psychometric measure, and it's one that fits really well with our tool. The further right that someone moves the dots along the line, the more severe their condition is. And you'll notice that obviously Shane's flagging this at the moment. But if the person had, no concerns at all with anything, they can actually tick at the bottom that none of the above applies to them.
Okay. And as Sue said, I'm deliberately flagging, and I want actually to come out with, that Shane's in a distressed space.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So now the triple H measure.
Yep. So the triple H refers to the helplessness, hopelessness, haplessness measure from Dr. David Lester. He developed this back in the 90s. It's based on Beck's anxiety depression scale. He did a lot of work actually with Beck back in the day. We actually only use two of the measures with his permission, and that's the helplessness and hopelessness, because those two are the only ones that are positively identified with suicide risk. So whether it's attempt or completion.
This is a tricky one. You got to, because it's got that kind of double furphies in it, isn't it? So forgive me, I've got to read a bit more to make sure I do the right answers.
Yeah. So some of the questions are phrased in a way where you have to answer the opposite of what you would think, and that actually it's a bit of a lie detector. It stops people purposely, unlike the DASS, which does actually allow someone to flag so that they become extremely severe with their conditions. This particular measure doesn't allow that to happen, so that it does have a lie detector in it. And it's good because it does force you to read the questions. It's hard to think the opposite, isn't it?
This is the hardest one it's right that the lie detector is good in this one. I find it the hardest myself to try and make it feel, come up with an issue.
So the next measure that's coming up after this is the Luscher color diagnosis. Luscher is very interesting. It was developed back in the mid-30s by Professor Max Luscher, who's passed away. We have permission to use his measure in our NeuroAssess platform, specifically looking for suicide and homicidal risk.
Mm-hmm.
So do you remember, Shane, what you had to do? Black and yellow.
Thank you. And it's like,
oh, it's interesting that you went for the mauve.
I know, isn't it? It was instinctive.
So
Then
the
with
Luscher,
visual,
the
go
Luscher
through.
has to be done twice. So the first time it's done, it's very cognitive. The person's really thinking about the colours that they're choosing. The second time, it's far more emotional response. And the choice of colours enables us to have an idea of how that particular person's feeling at that particular moment in time. There are 510 diagnostic outcomes with regard to the Luscher, so you really do need a book to refer to.
I'm now in the DASS
The
section.
DASS, yeah. So this one doesn't have a lie detector test. So, and this is where people who you know, particularly borderline personality people, they know how to modify this test so that they get the medication that they're often looking for.
What I find I like to use this myself, particularly, is it really does help, doesn't it, separate between depression, anxiety, and stress. So I kind of know, in essence, what engagement I might need to have with my client or patient.
That's true. And that's the good thing about this particular measure is that you don't have all the you know, there's no consistency, unlike the hopelessness measure. There's no consistency with the way the questions are requested, so that you know, it could be the depression, stress, and then back to depression and anxiety before you come back to another stress or depression. So it's interesting the way that is actually those questions are actually asked. So it does actually prevent a little of the lie detector stuff. But people who are really looking for, you know, medication in particular will score to the far right-hand side pretty much on all of those questions, irregardless.
I'm just going to skip one question too, just to show how it should stop us from going forward without it being done.
Yep.
Okay. So as you can see there, it highlighted the question that hadn't been answered. That's compulsory. Now I've successfully completed, and they will go back to Sue to inform her that, you know, your client
So just hang on, just click close for a moment. Thank you. All right. So, and now you can close that window, and I'll ask you to make me host again, please. Okay, my host.
You should be host
Oh,
now.
perfect. Yep. Okay. Oh no, you're still host.
Okay. Why am I not getting you host? Sorry, guys.
Oh.
Maybe.
I can reclaim it. It's all right.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. So having a look at the next thing. So I'll just go back to my emails, because what I will have seen is an email will have come in that tells me that Shane has completed his assessment. Here it is. So as you can see, I've received an email from NeuroBalance saying that there's a link with all the results, and I can see, without even going into the actual psychometric measures and the NeuroAssess platform, that my patient is potentially at you know, quite high risk with regard to the Luscher, the suicide cognition scale. Looking at those two and the hopelessness being a medium risk, and then I've got extremely high depression and anxiety, I would be very concerned about that particular patient. Just going to change the screen that I'm sharing. And I'm going to go back to the NeuroAssess platform. So I've been logged out for more than 15 minutes, which is good because it now forces me to re-log in. And you'll find that the platform also every 3 months insists on you changing your email, your password. So this is to help prevent anyone from, you know, hopefully hacking our particular platform. Okay, so as you can see here, I am sharing the screen. Can you see that? Yep. Okay, so as you can see here, we've got on Shane's details, he's got his own client ID. So if I was to copy that client ID, I could actually search for him in the search bar by his client ID as opposed to his name. So as you can see here, we've got helplessness and hopelessness. You'll see that they were done on the 5th of August 24. It's an American format. The hopelessness scale is reading 70. The helplessness scale is reading 70. Hopelessness scale is reading 68. When it gets to 80 and above, that's when it flags as very extremely high. Suicide cognition scale, again, completed on the 5th of August, is scoring at 35. The top score is 50, so that's extremely high as well. And as you can see here, it says here on the left-hand side, not yet started. That means that my notes have not yet been started. I've got levels of helplessness, hopelessness, the Luscher color run. And that, again, unless you've actually done Luscher training, which is really quite complicated, it is a couple of days of training. What we're looking for is suicide risk. So when you're getting that flag high risk or extremely high, then that's something that you need to be very concerned about. When you've got black in the first position followed by yellow, that person is wanting to end something. It may not necessarily be their life. It could be the amount of stress or, their work situation or even their partner situation. In this particular case, looking at these three colours, with black, yellow, and then blue immediately after it, I would say it would be the relationship. Blue often indicates relationship. The suicide cognition scale is high risk. Then we've got the DASS anxiety scale, extremely high. The depression scale is extremely high. And the stress scale has also flagged as being severe. So if we go up here, we can also have a look at the reasons the person is attending. And as you can see, there's quite a lot of information there. This information is really helpful if you're doing a referral for a GP. You can easily copy and paste that information into a referral letter. There's symptoms as well. There's a lot of information in here: drinking more alcohol, smoking more, decreased appetite, anxiety and stress that they've recognised, and the DASS has confirmed that as well. Some diagnosed condition, I would be a little bit concerned about that too, particularly if they're under stress and they're having headaches and heart conditions. I'd be questioning whether there's something physiological going on there as well. One of the other things that you can have a look at is the details. So the patient's details are here, and it's all the information that they put into the system for us, including if they had put any medication in, their referring practitioner if there was one, and any medications that they have would appear down here in the medications screen, and any legal matters. So I can see that that's where that's at. The informed consent is here. That has been emailed to Shane here, and that along with his signature block, and then any emergency contact details. I've got the patient's emergency contact here, and then my local emergency contacts that I have entered into the system. So going back here to the start, I click the start session when I'm actually entering my notes into the system, and you'll notice that it flags straight away, telling me that the client may be at risk of suicide or homicide. It gives me some ideas on what I need to do as a practitioner and some things that I can think about. And once I've seen that and read it, I can click on OK. I'm going to now minimize the practitioner notes, which is automatically opened. The reason for that is I'm going to move straight into the suicide questionnaire. So at this particular point, if I was concerned about a patient, I would actually be doing this on a Galaxy tablet or an iPad, or even a foldable Microsoft computer or IBM computer, so that I can actually start taking notes and doing this with the patient in front of me. So I would actually be starting with the level 1 questions, and I'll be starting to ask them some questions along, have they been feeling very unhappy? Is it more than they can sometimes bear? Do they feel that something has to end? If their reasons for living outweigh their reasons for dying, what is it that has to end? And in Shane's particular case, we're going to say that it's a work-life balance situation that's causing stress, causing stress and anxiety, and issues within the relationship. So it may not be that Shane actually is feeling suicidal, but he definitely wants something to end. And then there's other questions here, which are basically based on ideation. So if I click next, it takes me then to level 2, which is about intent and any history. So if they've got a history of family mental health issues, are they being bullied, harassed, or abused? We're going to say yes to that because it could be a bullying situation at work, even though Shane didn't specifically mark that in his initial assessment or his intake. Is he experiencing major stress in an important relationship? Yes. Is he separated? The answer is no, not yet. But there's obviously that's, potentially the next step for him. And, there's a few other questions. And has he, previously completed suicide? The answer is going to be no to that. So level 3 questions are very much far more specific around, the method that someone might use to complete. And there's a lot of information. So as you click anything, it opens up a dialog box that you can put more information into. Again, very important for you to, if you have a client who's genuinely suicidal and not just specifically wanting a particular part of their life to end, in this case, Shane having issues at work that's impacting on his relationship and he's wanting the work situation to end. If he was genuinely feeling suicidal, obviously I would be running through these questions and I would be, considering calling the emergency contact and also potentially for further assistance from ambulance. Or sending if the emergency contact arrives, sending them to the nearest hospital that in Victoria at least has a crisis assessment team. So there's a whole lot of there about intent and plan, including homicidal intent and plan. I love these questions at the bottom because the consequences really make the person change the way that they're thinking about things, and very much based on the Choosing Life program that we deliver. What would some of the consequences be for them if they were to take that particular action? How do they think people would react if they did that? What do we think? What does the patient think that they would say, think, or feel? What would some of the consequences be for them? What would be for the consequences for any witnesses? What steps can they take right now to resolve their anger or the pain that they are feeling? And really exploring that is really important because this is where we can change that hopelessness to hopefulness and helplessness to helpfulness. And are they open and willing to explore other solutions? And this is where you really need to, make sure that you've got time to be able to spend with this particular patient at that moment. It may mean if you've got another patient waiting, you may need to send them home with an apology while you continue working with this suicidal risk patient. I'm going to click finish at this point.
And so just
And I'm
a
going
practitioner
to
tip,
make,
yes,
sorry, Shane.
I'm going to cut in a practitioner tip there on that suicide question. On level 2, there is one question down the bottom that I think is always important. A lot of people I know skip over it. Is there a history of suicide within your family? Because often we want to look about learned behavior there. Sometimes people kind of go, actually, yeah, my Uncle Barry and Auntie May did do that. That kind of stuff. And that sort of helps us understand, well, okay, that could always be an option for the out whenever things are tough. Family lessons, it's an out. So don't be shy to actually ask that question. Sorry, go on.
No, thank you. All right, so I'm going to go back to the practitioner notes now, and you'll notice that it brings up a screen for me, and I can sit down and I can now start looking at the actual session. How did Shane actually present? So he might have been dressed in casual clothes. He might have been a little bit disheveled, even though he was wearing casual clothes, definitely tired and fatigued. He would have had dark circles under his eyes. He might have been looking a bit pale. Was he alcohol or drug affected? Well, I'm going to say not in this particular situation. He definitely had poor sleep. He was having some appetite problems. He's acknowledged that. Was he functional? I'm going to say he had loose associations. He was definitely anxious and possibly a little bit fearful. He was using connections, but there were some gaps in that as well. So as far as his behaviour, he was probably a little bit tearful, guarded and soft, but also pressured. His affect was a little bit flat, definitely sad, and a bit agitated and anxious. And I will now be putting in some further notes. So I might write down that, you know, I always put in the appointment date. Was the 5th of the 8th, 2024. I always start with that because I think it's important. Sometimes you don't actually put your notes in for a day or two after you've actually seen the patient. So it's really important to put your appointment details as to when you saw them. And then at this point, I'd be writing down some information. I'm just going to put in some garbage text because it's just to show you that you can actually add notes and then what the goals are.
And while you're doing that, Sue, I just want to address that upper stuff. Why we put all those kind of tick boxes there? They're not compulsory to fill in, but they're actually really good prompts for you. You know, should ever you need to call upon those notes in some time or kind of give evidence in some way, they're actually a good way to sort of, you know, form your argument, form your case, and even prompt your memory. Oh, that's right. That's the day when he really did come in looking quite disheveled. That's the day when he was very clearly tired. Do you know? So it just sort of helps in that kind of, you know, presenting cases and understanding.
Yeah. Yes, which is really good. So you could put in a lot of information at this particular point with regard to your goals for your next session, but also what actually happened in the appointment. I have a tendency to do a lot of writing, so I tend to scan my files. And as you can see here, I can choose a file. I'm just going to pick a particular patient's files for the moment because once they're scanned, they're saved on my hard drive. I upload them to the NeuroAssess platform. I save my notes. Now, before I end my session, if I want to make any changes to the practitioner notes, it's very important for me to be able to go back and do that now, because once I end the session, I can't add any more information at this point. So you'll see here, if I scroll down on the dashboard, underneath the outcomes, we've got the presentation of that particular patient at the time of the appointment, their behaviour, the appointment date, some information that I've put in about the appointment, the goals for the next appointment, and then what the attachment is. And underneath that, you've got the suicide questions that have been ticked. Have they been feeling unhappy? Is it more than they can bear? Do they feel it has to end? And what is it? So again, it's a work-life situation. Are they being bullied or harassed? And that is something that was responded to in the appointment. And are they experiencing major stress within an important relationship? So now that I end the session, I can now send Shane a new link, which I would base on the next appointment. So let's just say he has an appointment on the 8th of August. And I'm going to say that the appointment's actually at 4. I want to give him a little bit of extra time just to make sure that he's actually completed this, so that if Shane comes in and he has not completed my next round of psychometric measures, I'm going to give him some additional time to do that, and I'll be making sure that he does that before he enters my room. So while he's in the waiting room, I'll get him to go through that process. I'm going to confirm that. I'm just going to change the date back to the 7th though, Shane, just to show that you've got a new link. I'm going to require the DASS again, and I'm going to send that to Shane now. And I'm going to stop my share. Okay, and so you'll see that it's sent a new link, and I'm going to go back home, and I'm going to stop my share, and I'm going to make Shane the host again.
No worries.
Okay, there you go.
I will open my screen for you. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yep. So you've
Good.
got the client consent. If you could just show
Yep,
people
the
what that
consent
looks
form
like.
has come through. There it is, you know, and it's got a kind of this example of my signature was there, and then a PDF attachment of the actual document, which, well, yep, you can see that.
You'll need to share that screen. It's opened up in Adobe.
It's, I'll come back then.
Yeah, I know it's a bit confusing, isn't it? So if you click on new session.
Yep. The new session one. And there you go. So I'll start a new session. Okay, can you see the screen?
No.
No.
No, just share that screen. So you'll
All
need to
right,
go
so
back down to the bottom
go
to
back into all
share.
of this. Yep.
So end your share and then pick a new screen.
Boom, boom, boom.
bit clunky, isn't it, Zoom?
Yeah, it can be sometimes, isn't it? All right. So as you see here, this opens up for us again. This is the new session. Just to check in there, has there been any changes that's happened in the last kind of you know, week or so, or 2 weeks since we were last there, right? So, we know the case of building with this particular client being myself, is that work is the issue, right? So let's say there's been no change in my resident, but there has been a change in my work circumstances. We'll, allude to maybe something else happened, right? We also mentioned relationship issues. So, yep, I've actually separated from my partner in that week. And maybe, we also spoke about, parents being sick. So let's have a whammy, triple whammy for this poor fella. That kind of stuff that, his mother or father has passed, I have been feeling guilty because of that particular sort of decision and what's been going on. I'm finding it very hard to make decisions now because of the cloudy brain. All right. And I'm smoking more and I'm drinking more. All right. So go on to that. And then again, we could call this the SCS-S. So everything I'm going to make is quite extreme now. All right, and then the triple H again. It's the one that's hard. Strongly disagree, and common goals, agree. I certainly feel useless all the time. Strongly agree. I look forward to future friends.
So while Shane's doing that, one of the good things about the NeuroAssess platform is that once you've uploaded your notes, it does actually lock them down and they can't be edited, which makes them very reliable if you get called into court for any reason and you're going there as a witness, or if there's a coroner's inquest, then you'll be questioned, and you can provide very accurate evidence that has not been able to be tampered with. And that's really valuable when you are going to court or for any legal matter. So it's interesting that you picked the grey but before the blue then, Shane, because that's very indicative of the relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying my best, man. Trying my best. Yeah. And the DASS again.
Yeah.
Everything's going to be high for DASS now.
Yeah. So, I mean, we know that Shane's just making this up as he goes along. So that does make it. Now, the good thing about this particular measure, but this particular assessment, is that your clients can actually complete the intake on their mobile phone. It's actually a really easy thing for them to do. It does make it far more interactive. I quite enjoy the look of the platform on the mobile device. As a practitioner, if you wanted to, you could log into the NeuroAssess platform and add that to your home screen so that you've got it appearing as an app on your phone, and you can actually log in from your phone and mobile device. All right, thanks, Shane.
Yeah.
I'll reclaim the host. Okay. And I'm going to go back to the NeuroAssess platform. I have received an email from the NeuroAssess platform telling me that Shane has completed the assessment, but just for the sake of making things quick and easy, I'm just going to go back into him. Oh, sorry, I should actually go back because you can actually type in, if I type in the name Warren, it will just bring up, I've obviously got you in there a couple of times, Shane. Funny you've changed address.
I'm moving.
So I'm going to go into the one that I know we're currently using. So as you can see here, Shane's levels of helplessness and hopelessness have increased significantly. His suicide cognition scale has gone up a little, gone from 35 to 36. Again, you can see the date that the actual assessment was completed by Shane. Obviously, it's the same day because we're doing this on the same day. His level of helplessness, hopelessness is scored here. They're both high risk. You've got high risk again on the Luscher and high risk on the suicide cognition, and the DASS has now gone to extremely high for all three assessments. And if I have a look at the previous sessions, I can see that the helplessness and hopelessness has shifted. We use a traffic light system, and it's very easy to read and interpret. So you can see here as well that the returning client, there's been some changes in his life. And again, given all of these really high numbers, I would be very concerned about Shane at this point, particularly as he's had, as Shane said earlier, three things happen that are really significant issues that could very well tip him over the edge into completing. So if I start the session again, once again, I get the suicide risk flag that tells me that this patient is not in a good space. And again, I'm going to minimize the practitioner notes. I'm going to go straight into the suicide questionnaire. And again, you know, I will be running through these. And taking notes as we're going. Shane, do you want me to add anything to what has to end? So work-life
Yeah,
balance.
you know what? I'd find often if I was working with a patient this time, when you said, what really needs to end right now, mate? That kind of space, he'd be like, everything. You know, I
Yeah,
can't stand it. Right? Like that
yeah,
kind of stuff. And that really shows that he really is in that kind of desperation space. So part of what I want to try and do there is to help him break down the everything. And then we can do a priority list of what we can change. We can't change everything at once, you know? So it's just a little note there, you know?
yeah, yeah. So, you know, at this point, I'd be asking, who can I call? Maybe Shane might give me a name and number.
Sam Samson, wasn't
Name
it?
and number. Are you thinking about whether or not he can keep living this way? Obviously, the answer is going to be no. Has he considered taking his life? And is he feeling very angry and wants someone else to feel exactly how he feels? And if there is, who is that
That's right. And that would
person?
be that, you know, might be my partner because in the sense that we're separated now, isn't it? You know, and
Yeah,
what's really interesting to look at that when we look at the, you know, is there someone I can call? When I nominated my emergency contact in the previous session, that was my partner. You know,
yeah,
so as practitioners, we need to just check in on that. Well, you know, who else is there? You know?
yeah. So who you know, has that changed? All right, so I'd be collecting that information at this particular point, as long as my patient was capable of giving me that information. Obviously level 2. We're just moving on. I'm just going to quickly just tick a few things, Shane. I hope you don't mind.
That's fine. Yep.
There's a family history now of, actually I might say family history of violence and abuse, not mental health. Still being bullied at work, major stress, and recently separated. So I'll just go next now. Thoughts about suicide recurring. Is that a yes or a no?
Yes. Yep. Constantly. You know, isn't it? Like can't stop.
And
No
yeah,
one
and
loves.
explore information, right? So you'd be grabbing as much information. Do they have a plan? Yes. How does that look?
Going to drink myself to death.
And so I'll be asking all of these questions and answering all of those as we go along. Same thing with the suicide ideation. You know, and I think one of the important questions here is, what's stopping you from taking that step? So, you know, my adult children would be one of them,
Yeah, that's right.
and their partners, whom I love.
Yeah.
Oops. Yeah, well, you can see I've spelled something wrong there. Partners, yep. All right. Okay, and moving on, like we could go through all of those. We can answer some consequences, and we can, you know, have a think about all of these. And I'm going to say, I'm just going to put down the word yes here, because obviously we don't have time at the moment to be grabbing all of this information. But if Shane was in front of me and I was actually doing this, I would explore all of those with him. And I'm going to click finish again. And then I'm going to go back to my practitioner notes. And I'm going to say that he's disheveled, he's probably a little bit dirty, you know, very tired, starting to develop blotches, dark circles, a bit unusual, very pale. So I'll be going through all of these again, and anxious, fearful, maybe a bit paranoid, unaware of, you know, no insight at all, very tearful, withdrawn, downcast. Starting to feel very pressured, getting a little bit loud at times, definitely tangential, is that right?
Yep.
A little bit incongruent, sad, angry, agitated, and anxious. And again, appointment. So
While you're just typing there, so
on
it's just good.
session. Yeah.
It's good to note also, isn't it, that those sort of suicide questionnaire can seem quite overwhelming when you look at it on the screen a bit like that. Like, oh my God, do I have to ask every one of those questions? Well, no, you don't have to ask every one of those questions. You can skim through them. It's good to complete as many as you can. And what also we find, you can get it, we can provide it for you in a PDF format, so you can be a little bit more kind of proficient in it, or have it there as something else to call upon. If you're not the kind of person who's got a tablet immediately available, or all those situations. The idea really is, we know that those particular questions, level 1, 2, and 3, really help us define what type of response we need to do and how worried we need to be for our patient and client at the time.
Absolutely. All right, so I can then go on to the goals for the next session. So at this particular point, given Shane's extremely severe condition, I would actually be making a referral back to the GP and psychologist. In Victoria, I would consider sending to the CAT team, assessment team, at local hospital for assessment. And
This is
just
very powerful.
trying to build a case, like, different referral pathways, and building a bit of a case management team around this person, making sure that they've got support, particularly from close family and friends, who's around him at that time, where is he actually living, and, is he getting a lot of support? Again, if I've written notes, I can choose my file. You'll see it defaults automatically to my client list, because that's what I have set up in the NeuroAssess platform, and I'm going to save my notes and again end the session, and I'll be sending another assessment to Shane maybe in 2 weeks' time. So I'll make it, say, the 20th, and I'm going to change it to, so his appointment again is at 4 o'clock. Again, I'm going to give him until 6. So that makes sure that I get those assessments completed before he comes in, and I send it. And what will happen now is that the NeuroAssess platform will hang on to that email and will not send it until 48 hours before Shane's next appointment. So that gives him 2 days to complete the assessment before he comes. I'm going to stop sharing now. All right, so does anyone have any questions?
I just want to make a comment while people are just sort of thinking. It's also the importance of having the back end stuff when you set it yourself up, isn't it, about who are my referral options? This is when, when you find you've got a client who's in high distress for whatever reasons, that's the strength of that for you. Be able to go to that straight away and kind of go, all right, where would I refer this particular person to?
Yeah, absolutely. So having said that, I'm going to go back into the NeuroAssess platform and just share my screen again, because that's one of the things that I forgot to cover before. When you log in and you come to the login screen for the NeuroAssess platform, you can obviously create a new client, and this is where you type in their name, their last name, their email, and set your link expiration date. And you can require the DASS if you want to use it, bearing in mind that you should only use the DASS maybe around about every 4 weeks apart. In this particular case, because I was very concerned about Shane, I got him to do it a lot sooner than that. If the client struggles with mobile technology, you can actually create a client without an email account. That means that the link actually comes to you as the practitioner, and you have to have a device available for your patient to use in the waiting room when they arrive, and you ask them to complete the intake and the psychometric measures at that particular point in time. So local emergency contacts, this is where I can add any particular emergency contacts that I want to. You can see that I've got quite a few here. Crisis Assessment Team, the Northern Hospital. I've got a clinical psychologist who specialises in working with children. And so there's a whole lot of local emergency referral contacts that I can actually send people to, and that information is available. If I go back up to the top here, I'll pull up Shane's list again, and if I go to emergency contacts, you can see that they're all listed at the bottom here. And the good thing about this is, if I wanted to, I can just Control P, and that I can actually print that. So if I do that now, Control P, you'll see here it comes up with the print and what's the destination. So in this particular case, I'm going to send it to my printer, and I can then give it to either the patient or their emergency contact who has arrived at that particular time. And that gives them a whole list of referrals that they can contact as well. You might highlight the specific ones that you want your patient to get in touch with, which may be through a GP that you're referring them back to. All right, does anyone have any questions now?
Fantastic.
Okay, excellent. All right, well, thank you all very much for your time. I'm glad that didn't take as long as I thought, just under an hour. We will be sending out PD certificates for those people who have viewed this, so that you've got that 1 hour that you can claim as a webinar training event. And those of you who are interested in uptaking the NeuroAssess platform, please don't hesitate to contact either Shane or myself. I did forget, actually, Shane, to cover off on the suicide cognition scale. So I'm just trying to find it on my screen now. PowerPoint, here it is. So with the suicide cognition scale, one of the things that did come out of the training that was delivered recently is that where a patient flags in the 28 plus moderate to high range, that they are most likely going to attempt within 6 months. So if you've actually had a flag of 28 or more, which in Shane's case would be an issue, then you need to be aware that this patient is at risk for at least the next 6 months. So that's very important. And it is very important for you to continue to touch base with them and refer on if you believe that this is outside of your scope of being able to manage this particular patient.
Which is a good segue, Sue, to just reminding others that each one of those tools and measures, we run regular training throughout the year if you would like to understand them a bit more in depth.
And if you're interested in understanding how to manage a client who is suicidal, please consider doing the Choosing Life, a suicide intervention program with NeuroBalance. And apart from that, we really wish you all a very great day, and thank you very much for attending.
Bye now.
Thank you. All right, so I'm just going to stop the recording.